Quick one today because we all have to prep. If you're an information nerd like me, you got to prep to go see Fauci perjure himself today at the hearing. I don't think that's going to happen. Will he face jail time? Highly unlikely. Do we already know, and is it already confirmed, by the way, by his own words in the Fauci diary we talked about yesterday, that he's an absolute psychopath? Oh, absolutely. I think he's one of the worst mass murderers in human history. That's just me. So the hearing's going to happen today. The media spin's already in. We'll get to that in just a second. There's one burning question, the most important question of all. I will be very disappointed about if they don't ask. Of course, they're going to ask about, did we gain this? Did we fund creation of coronavirus? Yes. Did you already know about the lab leak? Yes, all that stuff. Did you, Fauci, squash early, cheap treatment of this stuff in order to push the vaccine? That's the question. To me, after thinking about this for so long, and I know we all have to regurgitate this again and go back to the dark times of what we just lived through, to me that's the most important question of all because it led to everything we got through. Anyway, we'll get to it, including that media spin is already in. So predictable. Anyway, thanks for finding Wicked Radio live stream and replay on X and YouTube and Facebook, and then clips from the show on all those channels, plus TikTok. Complete audio podcast of the show, wherever you like to get those. Posted shortly after the live stream, but let's get right to it. Let me start with this because we got to get this out of the way. Your favorite mainstream media outlets, how did they spin this already? Even if they didn't talk about it, that's a spin, because that is a technique. Most of them yesterday just ignored it. Let's just ignore it. Let's ignore the Fauci diaries, what was revealed. It is an absolute megalomaniac psychopath. Let's just ignore all that. Let's not cover it. Let's ignore it. That was one effort. Evidence of that last night on CNN. Now, they have this, I guess Scott Jennings wasn't there on the idiot panel, but I guess they have this token Republican that they pick on and all this other stuff. Talking about the New Jersey election fraud scandal, she started to bring up she dared mention the Fauci diaries, and they shot her right down the right. We're not talking about that. Right. Here's the first example of the media spin last night.
I think we need to have transparency around what's going on. I think one situation that, frankly, where we saw the government was certainly obfuscating, didn't have any transparency, was Anthony Fauci, who we're getting his diaries today. Where he...
No, we're not talking about that. So that's the first effort. The more insidious media spin of this has been this, and you may have seen this yesterday and don't fall for it. People have a right to have a personal diary. It's an invasion of privacy. Did you hear that at all? Did you get the invasion of privacy spin from the media yesterday? Don't buy it. In fact, Bobby Kennedy Jr. himself shot this down yesterday. Do not fall for this, my friends. The personal invasion of privacy spin. This is a federal employee writing these journals on federal computers, saved on federal hard drives, and included emails and conversations with other federal employees. This belongs to all of us. Do not buy that at all, what they've tried to tell you. Or there's one other thing. So we've got the three main spins. Just ignore it and hope it goes away. It's a personal issue. Nope, don't buy that either. Or how about this? And this just came out this morning. So eventually, because this is such a massive hearing and massive in the news, mainstreams have to at least tell you that it's going on. This is Good Morning America just this morning. Just the morning of the hearing, talking about this. Listen to the wording and the framing and the persuasive wording that they put into this whole thing. They make it sound like this poor retired guy is being attacked. Listen to how they spun it.
Because Fauci was the science, remember? Again,
That's a good one. That's Ron Johnson. We'll get to him in a second.
This will likely be a fiery hearing. Dr. Anthony Fauci, 85 years old, once the nation's top infectious disease expert who retired in 2022, has long been a target of Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, the chair of the powerful Senate Homeland Security Committee, who's accused Fauci of everything from mishandling the COVID response to misleading the public about COVID's origins to even lying to...
Did you hear the wording there? 85-year-old retired attacked has been a target, listen to the wording, of the powerful intel communities. Hear it? So they're trying to make Fauci become the victim already. That's the third spin. Maybe that's the most insidious of all. That's how they're framing this entire thing until we get the actual hearing today. So isn't that fascinating? Okay, so that's the spin. We've got that out of the way. You know, you didn't fall for it. I know. I'm proud of you. But a lot of other people did, so you need to correct them when they try to push that onto you. But what's the question today? What questions are they going to face? We already got a little preview of this with the fiery exchange between Rand Paul and Fauci a couple of years ago before. So we know exactly what it's going to be. And they're going to ask it about the origins. We know that. The funding of gain-of-function research, the funding of COVID. Were we behind that? We already know, yes, but they're going to ask him about that again. We're going to ask about our involvement with this, our U.S. military involvement. I think we already know about this, our intelligence community, our interest in creating a virus like this, because the Chinese were doing it, right? This was interesting. Senator Paul had an interesting response to this on Jesse Kelly, podcaster show yesterday, about the U.S. extreme interest in this, because we need to do it too. I thought this was fascinating, but this still isn't the most important question I think they're going to ask, but worthy of note, because I think he's going to ask him about this today too. Here's what he said.
One email from within the Intelligence Committee where they're having a discussion and they say, be careful about criticizing the Chinese having militarized this and having military sciences in it, because you realize we do the same. We had another interview with a high-ranking appointee to be involved in our government, and when we asked her about her previous work with bioweapons, I said, well, what are the limits? And she said, well, anything we think the Chinese are doing, we should do.
Internal emails from the intelligence community that have been exposed. They've been released. The judge ordered their release before. So you know that Rand Paul, in this hearing today, of course, is going to ask about that. What was our military, our CIA, our intelligence interest in this virus? Because you know that sure as hell didn't come from an animal. I think that's pretty much confirmed now, right? And that's an important question. That's an incredibly important question. It's a chilling question, right? Were we funding the same thing or worse? I still don't think that's the most important question of all as it relates to you and me and normal people and what we lived through and what we really still are actually, believe it or not, dealing with in the aftermath of the COVID cover-up. What's the most important question of all? I'll be the most disappointed in our elected representatives I've ever been if they don't ask this important question, and it may come from this guy. It may come from him. We'll get to him in a sec. Ron Johnson is going to ask him, I hope, and he freaking better. Did you, Fauci, did you squash the development and the accessibility of early, cheap, accessible treatments in order to push the vaccine? This is a guy who's going to be asking him questions today, and he sure as hell better ask him this, because she sure is fired up about it. This was from, I think it was Fox and Friends just yesterday. It's Ron Johnson. He'll be in this hearing. He better ask him this because he talked about it.
Because Fauci was the science, remember? Again, what a narcissist. So, no, let's face it. Anthony Fauci was funding gain-of-function research before the moratorium. The moratorium ended up being a joke because it allowed them to circumvent and continue to fund gain-of-function research. He lied about that to Congress. He knew about Ralph Baric. He knew about Peter Daszak. He knew about the labs in China. Mm-hmm. So he was fully aware of this. I think all of his lies were basically a massive cover-up of his involvement in the creation of the coronavirus to create a pandemic. Then, once that pandemic began, he focused everything on a vaccine. Not a vaccine, it's really an experimental gene therapy, okay? Sabotaged early treatment, whether it's hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, these cheap generic drugs. Instead, push remdesivir, which, by the way, nurses call it run, death is near. It knocks out your kidney. So just about everything he did leading up to the creation of the coronavirus, his funding of the research that I think resulted in it, the devastating impact in the shutdowns, masking. You ever see a little child wear a mask?
That was long, but worth it. And I hope he asks it just that same way today. I truly do. Did you squash the accessibility of early, cheap, available treatments in order to push, first of all, remdesivir, but also the vaccines? Got to get to those experimental vaccines. Got to push that, which became, as we know, with all the companies involved with Big Pharma, it became instantly, by the way. They were already big, but it became an extra $200 billion industry when we could have had this. To me, that's the most important thing of all. Believe it or not. Even more important, I think, because I think we already know. Our involvement in this and creating this, didn't we? Don't we? With gain of function, I think we know that we helped develop this. The most important thing to me, because of everything it led to, all the lives destroyed, businesses destroyed, couldn't go see sick grandma in the nursing home, whatever it was, All of this came from him directly, and we saw this in the emails, and yet he denied it. Squashing the development of accessible treatments to push the vaccine. That to me was the most devastating. Why? Why would I think that that's the most important thing, and why should you too? Because it led to all of it. Pushed us all into getting the experimental vaccine, which really wasn't a vaccine, as you heard Ron Johnson say right there. It wasn't. And it also led to this very easily. In order to sell that, in order to create that PSYOP, you became an enemy of the people. Remember that? You're an enemy of the state if you don't get the vaccine. And then you were shut out of your business. And then you probably got fired or lost a pension if you didn't get that vaccine, if you didn't do that. And then it led to all of this. And then the whole mask thing also revealed in the emails that the masks were completely ineffective, especially for small kids. And yet we masked them up anyway. Remember all that? It led to all of that. And then once that started to roll, then it became a bigger moneymaker. And then it became all of the celebrities. And then they got their friends in Hollywood to push the vaccine thing. Remember all the idiot celebrity musicians and actors that were getting the vaccine and telling you that you're a horrible person if you didn't? Think about where all this came from. Because you could have treated yourself with something that was just as effective as we know now. It wouldn't have caused any injuries, right? Ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, but they said that was bad stuff. You remember this PSYOP? Remember this propaganda? Ivermectin, that's horse paste. Remember that one? You were probably told that one too. No, it wasn't. The developer of it actually won a Nobel Peace Prize before for research in science because it was a malaria drug. No, it wasn't. People wound up using it for horses later on, sure, but it wasn't. But they told you that. They told you that it was. Remember what they did to Joe Rogan? Because he said he took I think it was ivermectin. I think it was. He said he didn't get the jab. And CNN put a picture of him on the screen, and they tainted his skin to look green to scare you. Remember that? All of this came from Fauci, who I think is one of the biggest mass murderers in history. All of this came from Fauci, squashing and starting the propaganda from his little computer in his picture with his big frame of himself up on the wall, telling you that all these early treatments that were effective and people who took them knew were bad for you. And they started that propaganda psyop. That's why I think that's the most important question today to ask, and they better. And I hope it's that guy asking it, or Rand Paul. Why did you in fact squash and stop the distribution or accessibility of these early, cheap, accessible treatments? Did you? Because we know he already denied that he did that once before, and then on the diaries he admitted that he did. So if he denies that now, he can perjure himself. Wouldn't that be something? But they better ask the question. They better. In order to push a vaccine that now we know caused a lot of injuries, did you squash early treatments that we all could have had? That, to me, is the most important question. Will they ask it? Boy, I hope so. We'll see. All right, let's get out of here and watch this hearing. If you're an information nerd like me, it is that important. It really is. It's tough. You know what I mean? It's tough to realize this kind of stuff, but you finally get truth and answers, hopefully, fingers crossed, with a hearing like this, for something hideous we went through in order to never go through it again, or our kids or grandkids never do. We hope so, anyway. We hope. We'll see. Got to get out of here and hope that Fauci perjures himself. Likelihood of that is very low, but let's see if it happens. All right, let's get to the truth. Thanks for hanging out with me. We'll see. Reaction to that, of course, coming up tomorrow. Thanks for finding the podcast, live stream and replay on X, YouTube, and Facebook. And the complete audio show is always posted right after the live stream, so I really appreciate it. Wicked Radio. Make it a wicked awesome Wednesday. Let's see what happens today, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.